We've all seen shows that get too good for their own good, that refuse to end while they're ahead. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened here. For the first 4 seasons, Dexter was fire. Season 4 especially, with the final episode being absolutely devastating. Dexter finally defeats Trinity, only to come home and find Rita dead in the bathtub, and his son crying in a pool of her blood. If the story ended there, it would have went full circle. Dexter's sins and darkness passing down to Harrison. That image alone could have been the ending. It's brutal and poetic. It showed the consequences of his choices without needing to spell it out. But instead of stopping there, the show dragged on for several seasons and 2 spin-offs, with a 3rd one coming out literally a few days ago. By season 8, we get a bizarre finale where Deborah dies and Dexter fakes his death, only to show us that he's now a lumberjack. That's it. That's how the original show ended. No justice, no consequences, no emotional closure. It felt like the writers couldn't decide what Dexter deserved, so they bailed. They brought him back in Dexter New Blood, where they fumbled the ending yet again. The ending was better though, but felt rushed. It seemed like the writers wanted to redeem Dexter and punish him at the same time, and we got neither. Dexter Original Sin was pretty good and had a satisfying ending, but I think the only reason why that worked was because it wasn't a total ending to Dexter's character. It was more or less just an ending to a season, which most of the time is great. But now I'm sitting here watching Dexter Resurrection, which also is great, but it made me think, how many seasons can we have of Dexter sliming one-off serial killers until we're bored? I mean, we've had 11 seasons now, if we include Original Sin and Resurrection. At some point, there will be no audience to provide an ending for, and I think people will eventually get bored of Dexter. I mean, I'm not bored. I think he's great, but I fear that someday that won't be the case. At first glance, you and Dexter don't seem that similar. Joe Goldberg is younger, more impulsive, less experienced, but deep down, they're the same archetype. They both think they're the exception. They both believe they can control their darkness. And they both live in this fantasy where love or logic will somehow make them less of a monster. In You, we watch Joe spiral season after season. In season 1, he kills to protect the idea of love. In season 2, he tries to reform, only to fall for love, a killer in her own right. Season 3, the marriage falls apart. More death, more delusion. But then comes season 4, and this is the turning point. Joe splits into 2 personas, his rational self and his murderous alter ego, Reese Montrose. He starts blacking out, killing people without remembering. His fractured psyche becomes literal. He's finally confronting the truth about himself. In the finale, Joe finally hits rock bottom. He kills Reese. He admits who he really is, and then, in what would have been a perfect ending, he jumps off a bridge. He takes accountability. He takes control for the first time. He decides to remove himself from the world to protect others from his darkness. That is a tragic, powerful end, until it isn't. Because of course Joe survives. And that takes us into season 5. Joe's back in New York, out of all places. He's rich, married to Kate, and running her late father's company. And guess what? He's still killing, still lying, still manipulating. But this time, the past sort of catches up with him. Marianne and Nadia trap him. Kate decides he's a monster, even though she told him to kill someone. And in the end, he's arrested and sentenced to life in prison. What I really don't like is that all the women assembled like the Avengers and somehow survived everything he'd done to them. He literally left Kate in a basement to burned to death. Marianne wasn't even in the building to save her. Like, I don't know how she got out of there. Then you have the ginger girl that I don't even remember the name of coming and pretending that she wants to marry him and do all this stuff. And then we get to the final episode where it starts off with the ginger just thinking of shooting Joe, which when I saw that, I thought, okay, now that's a good ending. She just caps him. She just kills him. It was actually a hallucination, which is so stupid, because if he would have died there, I think it would have been a perfect ending. Imagine, he dies right there, and Kate dies, and all those other people he just fucked over died. She's the only one who gets away from him. It would have been a better ending. But no, it was all in her imagination. It cuts to him just saying how beautiful the fucking nature is. All right, bro, so where does this go? All the women are given plot armor. Joe literally basically killed all those women. He shot the ginger, if I remember correctly. He drowned her. He hit her across the head. He did all these fucking things, and she was still alive. On paper, justice is served, but not really. Because even in prison, Joe isn't defeated. He blames everyone else for the person he became. There's no evolution for his character, no closure, no accountability other than locking his ass up. The real tragedy of Dexter and You is that both shows had perfect endings and kept going. Dexter season 4 ended with the consequences of his actions finally catching up to him. It was heartbreaking, poetic, and complete. You season 4 ended with Joe choosing to end the cycle. It was self-aware, tragic, and honestly brave for a show like You. But instead of letting these stories end where they should have ended, and when they should have ended, the writers walked it back. They decide to soften the consequences, drag out the conflict until it feels repetitive. And in the process, they dilute everything that made those shows special. If you're rewatching these shows, do yourself a favor, and stop at season 4. I actually urge you to rewatch it and stopping at season 4, because if you stop there and you think, yeah, that could work as an actual ending, and I think this is a way better way for the show to end, you can basically give yourself a headcanon ending. It's not something where you're making it all up in your head. It's literally on your screen. You just choose to not watch what comes after. Because if you do that, you'll walk away with a stronger story. Because after that, there's no real growth. Just recycled character arcs, soft resets, and endings that don't stick. Sometimes a great story has to end messy, but it has to end with purpose. Dexter and Joe both deserved better, and so did we. Let me know what you think. Did Joe's ending work for you? Do you still want more Dexter? Or is his story finished? And hey, if you like this breakdown, hit subscribe. I promise I'll stop before I ruin my legacy.